The 2023 Cup Series regular season has come to an end, and we finally have our 16 drivers that will compete for the title of NASCAR Cup Series champion in arguably what was the craziest, the most eventful regular season. We had drivers like Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman struggling after coming back from injuries that caused them to ultimately miss the playoffs because they didn't win any races during the regular season. We got 10 different organizations represented in the playoffs, which is a record in playoff era, or let alone 16-man playoffs. Also, the most surprising part, and it is what makes these playoffs predictions like really hard to get right, is the fact that all of these drivers, every single one of these drivers in this playoff grid, they have a shot at making it out of the first round, whatever small that shot may be, but they actually have a legit shot. All of these drivers are legit competitive playoff drivers. Like, all of them, or almost all of them, made it out of the regular season top 16 in points. Yes, even McDowell and Stenhouse, they were top 16 drivers for most of the regular season. So there are no any weaklings. There are not any like cannon fodder eliminations. There are no easy eliminations here. All of these drivers have a legit chance at making some kind of playoff run, and because of that, my playoff predictions are gonna be adjusted accordingly. I'm gonna take that into consideration. And you guys already know how I make these predictions. I don't make it based on who I think is gonna win which race in which round. I don't like thinking like that, especially since in the opening round of 2022 we had 3 spoiler wins in Eric Jones, Bubba, and Chris Buescher. So because of that, I am not gonna bank on playoff drivers winning every single race. We could have Chase Elliott winning a race or 2 in the playoffs. That could definitely happen. So yeah, because of that, I'm gonna make my predictions based on how far I think each playoff driver will go. Kind of like their ceiling. The drivers that have the higher ceiling in my opinion, those are the ones that are gonna make it much further in my playoff grid. So without further ado, let's begin. So as I alluded to earlier, round of 16, every single driver has a chance of making it past this round, but only 12 can make it in, hence why next round is called the round of 12. So because of that, 4 drivers have to be eliminated. The 4 drivers that I believe will be eliminated are the ones that I believe have the smallest chance of making it past the round of 12 based on the competition that they're going up against. Those drivers are going to be Michael McDowell, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Bubba Wallace, and Tyler Reddick. And I know what you're thinking immediately. 2 2311 cars out in the first round. I'm putting the 2 2311 cars out in the first round, but that's for good reason. Bubba Wallace, again, when you look at Bubba Wallace, he's the race that everyone is looking to, that 23 team included, is Kansas. A race that has become kind of like Gibbs and Toyota's playground as of late. Well, that and Richmond as well. But yeah, Kansas is a track that has definitely become Toyota's playground in recent years, and Bubba Wallace is a defending race winner, and the 45 team, they have also won with Kurt Busch. Bubba actually won at Kansas with the 23 team, but they were number 45 because the 45 was in the owners playoffs, and that's another thing. This is 2311's first real taste of playoff action. I'm not talking about being in the owners playoffs. And speaking of the owners playoffs, I find it really funny because I just couldn't. I found this on Twitter the other day, and I just needed to mention it again, just for the sake of irony. The 23 team, they failed to make it to the owners playoffs because of the 9 team Chase Elliott, he actually placed the 9 team in the owners playoffs over the 23, which is really ironic because the 45 team being in the owners playoffs last season is what prevented the 9 team from being in the owners championship 4. Elliott managed to make it to the drivers championship 4, but the 9 team wasn't fighting for the owners title in 22, in large part because of that 45 team of Kurt Busch not being able to complete the full season, but the 45 team was still in the owners playoffs. So I find it really ironic now that Chase Elliott not being in the playoffs, but the 9 team being in the owners playoffs is what led to the 23 team not being in the owners playoffs. So I feel like this is kind of a bit of retribution. Elliott didn't make it to the owners championship 4 because of a 2311 car, so he comes back next season and he eliminates one of the 2311 cars out of the owners playoffs. That being said, he didn't make the playoffs himself, and again, he was the regular season champion last year and he didn't make the playoffs this year. But then again, Truex, he made it to the playoffs as the regular season champion this year after missing the playoffs last year. So again, these playoffs were really crazy and eventful, like I alluded to earlier. But I'm going on a tangent here. So anyways, both 2311 cars, they have shown speed, but they lack a lot in execution. Execution has been their issues, not just on the pit crew, but also on the drivers, especially in the case of Tyler Reddick. Reddick has this curse, quote unquote, where he cannot just not make it out of the round of 16, no matter how fast he looks or how much speed he has. And it looks like that trend could continue because that 45 team, they just keep shooting themselves in the foot, either because of the team or because of the driver. You look at Richmond, not the spring Richmond race, but the second race that was in the summer. Reddick was in contention to win until the speeding penalty happened. And then the next race at Michigan, it was the pit crew that screwed him out of a potential win. So because of that, and the fact that 2311, again, this is their first real taste of playoff action, I don't think they're gonna make it really far. Even with Kansas being like their go-to race, it's just one race. They need to put like a good 3-race stretch. And again, there is no guarantee that Bubba or Reddick will win that Kansas race because, like I said, Toyota is good as a whole on that track. It's not just the 2311 cars, it's the Gibbs cars, Truex, Hamlin, Bell, especially Hamlin. Many people are going to look at him to win and sweep both Kansas races, honestly. But yeah, 2311, their playoff run is going to be cut short. Stenhouse and McDowell, I'm also mentioning these two together because, again, like I alluded to earlier, they are legit top 16 drivers, but they're like more in the low end of the top 16. So because of that, even though they're gonna be out in the round 16, it's not gonna be like a guarantee elimination. I think they can make it out. One of them can make it at the very least. They can make it out of the next round, into the next round. If one of these guys, if one or two of these guys, like they got struggles and they struggle and they just fall apart. And I'm not gonna lie, it's very possible that it could happen because, again, remember, 2022, the playoff opener at Darlington, a lot of playoff drivers had issues, and a non-playoff driver in Eric Jones ended up winning. And again, as a matter of fact, spoiler drivers, like drivers that were not in the playoffs, they won all of the races in the first 4 races of the playoffs because Reddick also won the round of 12 at Texas right after he was eliminated. And that's the thing about Reddick. He has a very high ceiling, but he also has a very low floor that it kind of, makes his high ceiling. Because if it was for ceiling alone, I would have Reddick as high as a round of 8. And, he is, by speed alone, Reddick could make it all the way to a round of 8. But it's just that in the case of Reddick, the floor is just so low for him that it just that the high ceiling alone won't be enough for me to convince me to put Reddick any higher than this. So anyways, round of 12, Kevin Harvick, Keselowski, Ross Chastain, and Ryan Blaney. These are the 4 guys that I believe are going to be eliminated in round of 12. Harvick, his swan-song season ends here. You could make an argument that Harvick could be eliminated like much earlier in the round of 16 because he kind of struggled a bit towards the end of the regular season. He was like the best driver on points in the regular season until he wasn't. In the final few races, Keselowski overtook him, and Harvick also slipped to like 9th or 10th or 8th, somewhere like that, like towards the back of the top 10 when it comes to like regular season standings and that stuff. So he missed out on a huge chunk of playoff points that Keselowski took away from him. So because of that, I think he's gonna struggle. He's gonna have to do a bit more in the round of 16 for him to advance. But then again, because I believe both 2311 cars will struggle, I think Harvick's gonna be fine. Blaney is kind of in the same boat. I know Blaney finally broke that winless streak, but he has been worse this season than in 2022. Because at the very least in 2022, he wasn't winning races, but he was competing for wins. How many races have you seen Blaney say that, he's a contender? Oh, watch out for Blaney. He is a contender for the win. How many times have you said that this season? The Coke 600 that he won is one of those. The Talladega race in the spring is also another one of those. But not much outside of those 2 races, as like that I remember from the top of my head. So, and even if there are more races than those, still you get the point. Blaney has not competed for wins as often as he did last year, even though he finally won this season, unlike last year. So because of that, I believe you could also make an argument that he is out in the round of 16. I don't think he will, but the fact that he also also had some struggles in towards the end of the regular season, it really raises a few red flags. Overall, I believe the round of 12 is a really good stopping point, which is honestly really surprising. A lot of people are going to find it really surprising because Talladega is in this round and Blaney is really good at Talladega. He's won there before, so he can do it. But so does Keselowski. And I also have Keselowski out in the round of 12, despite Talladega being on that round. And it's the same reason why I got Blaney out as well. It's because Talladega is a freaking lottery. It doesn't matter how good you are at Talladega. I'm not gonna say you will make it out of the round of 12 because you won Talladega. That's just really impossible to predict, and I am not gonna go down that rabbit hole. And finally, also a driver that is out in the round of 12 that hasn't really made that much noise since the summer is Ross Chastain. Trackhouse has honestly been really, really disappointing in the summer stretch. And a lot of people tend to point the finger at Suarez for when it comes to Trackhouse struggles, but Ross Chastain he hasn't looked too bright either. Outside of that Nashville win, which has been like the diamond in the rough for this summer stretch of Trackhouse, Chastain hasn't really shown any race winning or even top 10 speed. Top 10s have been really hard to come by, and to the point where Chastain he finished the regular season with only 9 top 10s, and for a team that finished with 21 top 10s in all of 2022, that is just borderline unacceptable. Call it whatever you want. There are some theories floating around that, Chastain had a talk with Justin Marks and he hasn't been the same ever since, after the Darlington incident with Kyle Larson. And then he had the talk with Justin Marks and he kind of straightened out his act and he hasn't been the same ever since. There's a lot of theories surrounding that. But regardless what you think, Chastain just hasn't been the same. I do think he's going to make it out of the round of 16 because there are a lot of tracks that favor him, like Darlington and Kansas. And I believe he can he can string together a couple of good finishes there to the point that he can, at the very least survive the first round. But I am not putting him in the round of 12. I just cannot justify putting Chastain in the round of 8 over these 8 guys right here. So I feel the round of 12 is a good stopping point for him. Now for the round of 8, the 4 drivers that I got eliminated here are Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell, and Christopher Buescher. Now for Joey Logano, typical trend of him making the championship 4 every other year, and then the year after he makes the championship 4, he misses it. Like, he doesn't make the championship 4 in consecutive years. That's a trend when it comes to Logano. Many people say that that this is the reason why Logano has been struggling, is because of that trend, but the real reason is because the man's suffering a championship hangover. You will look at his regular season stats and you will see on paper that they are the same as 2022, like they're very comparable. But if you look at the finishes, if you take a deeper look at the finishes, especially the finishes that are outside the top 10, it's almost checkers or wreckers for Joey Logano. If he's not finishing top 10, he is either crashing out or finishing outside the top 20, just struggling to pull together consistent results. And that was the case for him, especially earlier in the season. I know he kind of got some consistency later in the season. A few more, top 5s were like top 5s and top 10s were a bit more plentiful, but still, the lack of playoff points, and Logano just lacks in playoff points big time. I don't think he made it to the top. I don't think he finished top 10 in regular season, in the regular season, which means that he missed out on a substantial amount of potential amount of playoff points there. And that has always been his undoing on the years that he doesn't make the championship 4. It's just that he doesn't get enough playoff points, and he is often forced to win a race in order to make it to the championship 4. And if he doesn't, he just doesn't make it. And because of that, I think he's going to turn it up in the playoffs. He is a defending champion. I think he's going to make a very compelling case for a very compelling, title defense in the playoffs. But round of 8 is going to be his stopping point. Like it has been almost every other year. He doesn't make the championship 4. Round of 8, it is. Kyle Busch is kind of in the same boat as Joey Logano in that he doesn't have as many playoff points as he should have because he is struggling in the regular season. In the case of Kyle Busch, he was in the back half of the regular season. Like, the start of the regular season was great for him, 3 wins in the first 15 races, and he was also in the hunt for the regular season title, but inconsistency towards the end, it took him down from like a potential 3rd place to all the way down to 9. So he lost out on a lot of playoff points that guys like Chris Buescher, Brad Keselowski, they managed to capitalize. Now, I do still think that the playoff points that he has are going to be enough for him to avoid any potential struggles in the round of 16 and round of 12. He won Talladega in the spring, and he has also started to not suck at the Charlotte Roval, so I'm not really worried there. Of course, there are some people saying that he might struggle like Tyler Reddick did and be out in the round of 16. Well, there's some potential to that. That's like a disaster case scenario that I don't think, hopefully that doesn't happen. And this has just been a bounce back year for Kyle Busch, and he has just been a feel-good story after Jokic Racing allegedly did him dirty. So yeah, I think round of 8 is a good stopping point for him. He is one of the 2 dark horses to make it to the championship 4. Should something happen to these 4 guys, Kyle Busch can hopefully take their place as one of the drivers in the championship 4. And I said 2 dark horses because the other dark horse is Christopher Buescher, who is, in my opinion, without a doubt, the breakout driver of this season. And it's really crazy because Buescher was like solidly in the playoffs before this happened, because just like he was kind of like in the Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick train of drivers that they they're not winning races, but they're like they have a huge points cushion to where they can make playoffs and points, the playoffs and points, provided there are not any new winners. Chris Buescher was largely in the same boat, and then in the span of 5 weeks, just bam, he won 3 races in 5 weeks, just like that. It was just a dramatic turnaround. You know, those 3 wins, you kind of feel like they came out of nowhere, but when you look deeper, it's like Richmond, he just was the car to beat in the final stages of the race, and Michigan too, he just outdueled Martin Truex Jr. And then Daytona, that was just a straight up teamwork between him and Keselowski to put themselves in position to put for Keselowski to put his teammate and, you know, kind of the car he owns, you know, in position to win. So it has been just all about execution in the right places and in the right moments for Chris Buescher. It is one of the main reasons why RFK Racing has been the biggest surprise of the regular season, and why Buescher has been the breakout driver of the season by far. If I had to pick a Ford to make it to the championship 4, it would definitely be Buescher. He is carrying the torch for Ford right now, but it's just that outside of him, Ford has just struggled a lot, and even with those 3 wins, RFK Racing, they're still a step behind. They're still a step behind the Hendricks and the Joe Gibbs. So if I was a betting man, I would say Buescher doesn't make it to the championship 4, but a round of 8 is more than enough for this RFK team. It's a great building block for them. And finally, driver that I have out in the round of 8 also is Christopher Bell. Now, on paper, just like Joey Logano, Christopher Bell had a very similar regular season by the numbers in 2022. Bell had a very similar regular season in 2023 on paper. Because when you look at the numbers, the thing about Christopher Bell is, last season, he was the best car at Joe Gibbs Racing. So because of that, if you had to pick a Toyota to make it to the championship 4, it had to be Christopher Bell, and he definitely responded with wins under pressure at Charlotte, Roval, and Martinsville. Now, do I think he can make it again? Yes, you know, anything's possible, but I just don't think it's in the cards. It's very much less likely because he is no longer the best Toyota on the field. I know at the start of the regular season it looked to be that way, but then he kind of just, you know, started struggling a bit. Wasn't competing a lot for wins outside of, you know, races like Chicago Street Course, but outside of races like those, he wasn't competing much for wins. Even top 5s were hard to come by for quite a couple of months there. And because of that, he got phased out by Truex and Hamlin, who have now taken over as the 2 best Toyota drivers. So because of that, even though Christopher Bell is like, by the numbers, he looks kind of like the same, the fact that he is competing with his Toyota teammates and, you know, his JGR teammates are actually performing better than him this season, that kind of, you know, puts things into perspective. You kind of see where I'm going at, where if I was a betting man, I would say Truex and Hamlin make it to the championship 4, Bell out in the round of 8. Is there a scenario where the 3 Gibbs cars make it to the championship 4? Yes, because, you know, they were all like top 4 in regular season points. Truex won the regular season title, Hamlin 2nd, and Bell was 4th. So, you know, Bell could definitely also be a dark horse. There's plenty of dark horses here in the round of 8. So, again, the fact that they are here, it means that they have a shot at making it into a championship 4 if one of these guys falters. So, anyways, championship 4: Truex, Hamlin, Byron, and Larson. When I was on NASCAR Twitter, I saw these 4 guys. Like, I saw a lot of like other people making their playoff predictions, and most of what I saw, they had Truex, Hamlin, Byron, or Larson, or at the very least 3 of those 4. Most of those graphics had like these guys at the championship 4, or at the very least 3 of those 4. You know, they were doing stuff like replacing Larson with Kyle Busch, or replacing Byron or Hamlin and stuff like that. But these 4 guys were the guys that showed up the most when it came to Championship 4, and that's for good reason too, because those are the 4 guys. The more I thought about it, the more it makes sense, because Truex and Hamlin, they were like the 2 best drivers in the regular season. Truex was a regular season champion, and Hamlin, he really found momentum late in the season. When things click right for Hamlin, he looks like the car to beat, like by a lot. You also got Byron, guy that won 5 wins in the season. He is definitely cooled off a little bit because he was, after that Atlanta win, he was in the running for the regular season title. He was leading the points, as a matter of fact. But then he just kind of, that summer slump happened. The classic summer slump for William Byron happened. He always tends to cool in the summer months for some reason. And even with the win at Watkins Glen, he still finished 100 points back of the regular season championship. He was a distant 3rd. So there is definitely some cause for concern for Byron. He could definitely not make it into the Championship 4. There is some cause for concern for that, especially since all the previous seasons Byron has made the playoffs. The spotlight was not on him when it came to the Hendrick camp. It was always Chase Elliott or Kyle Larson when it came to the Hendrick camp. Now Elliott is not in the playoffs, and Larson, while he is in the playoffs, he has been very inconsistent, kind of like Kyle Busch. So Byron is definitely going to be the guy of reference when it comes to Hendrick Motorsports in the playoffs. And this is the part that really worries me about Byron, is how he will handle that pressure, and is he ready for that? I think he will, and even if he struggles, like, he has a big haul of playoff points that he can fall back on. And he also, like Joey Logano, he also has a tendency to turn it up in the playoffs. He made it all the way to a round of 8 last year, despite, struggling all summer stretch. So he knows how to get hot at the right time. And also the fact that he has led a ton of laps throughout the regular season, it shows that he not only that those 5 wins, they are no fluke. That he is competing. He is a legit contender for wins. So I just hope his lows aren't that low to the point where he gets eliminated early and those playoff points cannot save him. And finally, Kyle Larson. In my opinion, like I said, very inconsistent. When he clicks, he definitely clicks. He looks like the guy to beat, kind of like Hamlin. Of the 4 guys, I feel like Larson will be the guy that will have like the most struggle to make it to the Championship 4, like the hardest path, simply because of those inconsistencies. With that being said, however, I know I said that I don't like predicting drivers winning particular races in the playoffs, but you cannot understate the fact that Homestead is in round of 8 and Larson just put on an absolute masterclass at Homestead last year. There was a point in that race where he was like half a lap ahead of 2nd place, which was really crazy. And because of that, I feel inclined to pick Larson to win Homestead, or at the very least do extremely well to the point that that Homestead race, even if he doesn't win, will give him a huge points halt that will propel him all the way into the Championship 4. That could very well be the case, and even with the inconsistencies, I definitely feel like Larson has a pretty high ceiling, a higher ceiling than Bell, Buescher, Kyle Busch. And I have more confidence in him, as crazy as that sounds, or as odd as that sounds. I believe more in Larson making the Championship 4 than I do a Kyle Busch or a Christopher Bell or a Chris Buescher. So even with the inconsistencies, the fact that Homestead is in round of 8, it kinda is really tempting for me to pick Larson as a guy in the Championship 4. So because of that, you got a Gibbs versus Hendrick battle, as you can see, kind of like a mirror of 2021, except that you replace Elliott with Byron. Now in 2021, Hendrick just they just definitely had the upper hand. Larson and Elliott, they were running circles around Denny Hamlin. Hamlin didn't let a single lap in that 2021 championship for Truex. It felt like, you know, he was gonna win the title, but then a timely caution and a fast pit stop, Larson managed to win the title and cap off an amazing comeback season for him in NASCAR. This time around, the tables have turned. I think the Gibbs cars are gonna have the upper hand. I think Byron and Larson, they're gonna put together some pretty good races because they have won at Phoenix in the past, so they know how to get it done. But again, like I said, they're gonna have some struggles making it to Phoenix. It's not gonna be like Truex and Hamlin. I feel like these two guys, being veterans, they're gonna have like more of a smooth sailing. I know Larson is a veteran in the sport too, but he has only made it one championship four in his career, so he kind of lacks that championship four experience that Truex and Hamlin have. So because of that, I feel like the championship is gonna come down to the two JGR teammates. And as you guys already know, when it comes to Denny Hamlin, I need to see it to believe it. Hamlin, I believe, is more than capable of making it to the championship four. Making it to the championship four is one thing, but winning the title altogether is another. Hamlin has made it to the championship four a grand total of 4 times, and he has failed to win it every single one of those times. I'm sorry, but I just don't trust Hamlin. I need to see it to believe it. Because of that, I'm gonna pick Truex to be the champion. Again, another driver that has won at Phoenix. He won there in 2021, which just wasn't too long ago. And these short, flat tracks, they really tend to play well into Truex and also JGR's wheelhouse. So because of that, I feel that and also the fact that just Truex is just having an amazing, you know, redemption year after missing the playoffs last year. It's just meant to be for him to, you know, finally win that second title after being so close several times. You know, if there was ever a year for Truex to win that second title, it will honestly be this year. Right now, as of the making of this video, Truex is my championship pick at the moment. Yeah, that is subject to change, but honestly, I'm pretty confident in that pick. I don't think Truex is gonna fall apart in the playoffs say like a Kyle Larson or potentially a William Byron. He is a veteran with playoff experience, and I think he has the right combination of consistency. Also, he's also led a ton of laps as well throughout the regular season, just like Byron. So he's even if he's not competing for wins, he's at the very least competing for to be top 10s. And honestly, that is what matters. Like top 10s, if you're not winning races, at the very least, those top 10 stage points, coupled with the playoff points that you gain in the regular season, those come a long way. So because of that, yeah, Truex is my champion, and this is my playoff grid. Now, all we have to do is wait and see how poorly this ages. Because, let's face it, my playoff predictions are not always perfect.